Saying campaigners have saved Lewisham Hospital from cuts, winning their long-running battle with the Health Secretary, and this time their victory seems final. Judges today backed a court ruling this summer that Jeremy Hunt didn't have the power to downgrade Lewisham's A&E and maternity units. But what will today's defeat for the government mean for the future of other hospitals? With the full story, here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
It was a decision which took everyone by surprise. The campaigners could hardly believe it. For the second time in 3 months, a court has rejected the government's plan to downgrade Lewisham Hospital. And this time, it looks as if it's final.
They went about this completely the wrong way. This was bullying top-down closures through for a very successful, clinically excellent hospital that's much needed by its local community. They're determined to centralise at all costs. They're not doing proper consultation or research. Their figures are flawed.
Lewisham Hospital was the most high-profile and controversial casualty in a package of cuts aimed at rescuing a neighbouring health trust from bankruptcy. It was in October 2012 the Special Administrator announced plans to close A&E. In January, Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt said A&E would instead be downgraded, but the maternity unit would close. But in July, the High Court ruled that Mr Hunt had exceeded his powers. Yesterday, the government asked the Court of Appeal to overturn that ruling. The 3 appeal court judges said they were conscious of the need to make an urgent decision to end the ongoing uncertainty. And it took them just 10 minutes to decide that Jeremy Hunt did not have the power to downgrade Lewisham Hospital. The judges didn't even give a reason for the ruling. That'll come later. In a statement, Mr Hunt said, "My job as Health Secretary is to protect patients across South London, and doctors said these proposals would save lives."
Back in the summer, he lost the first court ruling, and we said to him, for goodness sake, stop digging, you're in a hole, get out. Don't commit more public money to fighting this. But he did. He squandered thousands trying to protect his own pride and defend the indefensible.
The government says it may now alter the law to allow the NHS, as it puts it, to change and innovate. The Lewisham campaigners claim that's code for steamrollering future hospital closures. Simon Harris, ITV News, the Court of Appeal.
Well, let's get some more reaction now from the MP for Lewisham East, Heidi Alexander, and from the local GP, Louise Irvine. Thank you both for coming and speaking to me on this. When you woke up this morning, did you expect by this evening you'd be celebrating this victory?
No, we didn't expect it. We thought there would be some time between the end of the court case and the results. So we were taken by surprise and we were delighted, absolutely delighted.
And the result in the end came really quickly, didn't it? 5 or 10 minute ruling.
Yes, the judges retired and they came out within about 5 minutes and they said that the case was thrown out on the issue of what they call vires, the power of the Trust Special Administrator to make the decision that he made.
Heidi Alexander, obviously if you live in a certain area, you don't want to see the services that you use, not necessarily on a daily basis, but you might need to use A&E and maternity closed at all. But in this case, was the fight so strong because of the perceived unfairness of it from campaigners that Lewisham was having to suffer because of problems, financial problems at another hospital trust?
Well, I think that is true. I mean, I think common sense dictates that, you know, there is a problem with a process where you take the axe to a very successful, solvent hospital in order to deal with financial problems elsewhere in the NHS. And I think the public saw the unfairness in that. We have always thought that the law was on our side on this point, and today we've had that confirmed by the judges in the Court of Appeal.
So what happens if the law gets changed, if the care bill that's going through Parliament at the moment goes through? Because the way the campaigners are portraying it, other hospitals, Lewisham in the future, wouldn't necessarily be protected. Hospitals could suffer because of the financial mistakes of another trust.
That's right, and there will be a huge debate and a very big fight in the House of Commons when the care bill actually reaches us, perhaps in a couple of weeks or couple of months' time, because the government is trying to change the law so that they can do elsewhere exactly what they wanted to do in Lewisham, but which the courts today have said they can't do. So this is really the government's backup plan, if you like, to try and force through closures of hospital services services all over the country. And really, if they get their way with this, which I will be certainly opposing in the Commons when it comes to be debated there, then you could see a situation where no hospital service is really safe, because it could actually become under the sort of attention of the special trust administrator when they're appointed to a failing trust. So it really means that no hospital in the future would be safe.
If you were in power, though, where would you fix the problem of the financial problems that certain trusts are facing? Because the problem does need to be fixed, doesn't it? We can't all sit here and talk about how it's unfair for Lewisham. The costs need to be met somehow. Perhaps you would argue not with your constituents, but it needs to be faced.
Look, of course we need to have a financially sustainable NHS going forward, but I would say that the starting point for any reconfiguration or reorganisation of service has to be what is in the best interests of patients. You can't allow the accountants to basically take charge of this whole process. And so I think that a proper process which starts with the clinicians, starts with what is in the best interests of patients, has to be the way forward, and not this brutal, very quick regime that is the Trust Special Administration regime that we've seen in South London.
OK, Heidi Alexander, thank you. Louise, just a final point from you, really. Given we know the South London Healthcare Trust has suffered huge financial problems, given Lewisham is now saved from being affected by that, surely patients, perhaps in other services in Lewisham or in South London, across South London, or London as a whole, will see their services suffer because of this?
I don't think so. I think we have shown an example of how a community campaign can come together with doctors and nurses and with the council to defend local services.
But how is this financial hole going to be filled?
There is a lot of money wasted, squandered by this government unnecessarily, which is not being spent on frontline services. So there are about 6,000 bureaucrats in NHS England when there should only have been about 3,000. They spend millions on management consultants. They spend billions on private finance initiative. They spend a lot on this whole process of privatisation. So I think we have to say, don't squander money and spend it instead on the front line where it's needed.
OK, and obviously we can't put those points to the government or the Health Secretary at this time. Louise Irvine and Heidi Alexander, thank you very much. Thank you. A lorry driver has died in a crash on the M25 in Hertfordshire. 30 firefighters were needed to get a fire under control after the cab overturned. The clockwise carriageway between junctions 23 and 25 has been closed for much of the afternoon. Traffic is now moving, but there are long delays in the surrounding area. There's been widespread anger over the decision to award a six-figure payoff to the former head of Haringey's Children's Services, who was in charge when baby Peter Connolly died. In 2000.